In a quiet Georgia town, a teenager walked into school and never walked back out. His body was found the next day, wedged upside down in a rolled-up wrestling mat. What followed wasn't closure. It was chaos, accusations, conspiracies, and a family that still demands answers more than a decade later. This is the story of Kendrick Johnson, and it's a story that refuses to die. Valdosta, Georgia, January 10th, 2013. It was just another day at Lowndes High School, until it wasn't. 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson, an athlete known for his quiet demeanor and strong work ethic, didn't come home. His mother reported him missing that night. No alarms were raised by the school, no alerts, no calls. The next day, students noticed a foul odor in the old gym. Moments later, everything changed. It was the morning of January 11th, 2013. Students at Lowndes High School in Valdosta, Georgia, returned from winter break, easing into their routines. But inside the old gym, used mainly for storage, something was wrong. Several students noticed a strange smell. At first they dismissed it, maybe old sweat, dust, mildew, but the odor got stronger. Then someone looked closer. Among a cluster of large rolled-up gym mats, each standing vertically, taller than a person, someone spotted what looked like socks. Feet, maybe, sticking out of one mat. They thought it was a prank, a dummy, a joke gone wrong. It wasn't. First responders arrived. They tipped the mat. It was heavy. Inside, wedged vertically, head first, was 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson, lifeless. His body was compressed in an unnatural position, arms pinned. His face was swollen. Blood had pooled at the top of his head, gravity pulling everything downward over the many hours he'd been upside down. One shoe lay near his head inside the mat. Another was sitting just outside the roll, clean and upright, neatly placed, almost. School officials quickly locked down the gym. Law enforcement taped off the scene. News hadn't yet reached Kendrick's parents, who were still waiting and hoping their son would walk through the front door. He never would. That day, investigators made an early conclusion. Kendrick had died trying to retrieve a shoe. The theory was that he dropped it inside the center of the upright mat, each mat roughly 6 feet tall and 3 feet wide, and instead of tipping it, he climbed on top, reached in, and slipped. He got stuck. He couldn't breathe. And sometime during the previous day, likely hours before anyone noticed, Kendrick Johnson suffocated alone, surrounded by silence. But if it was just a tragic accident, why did so many things not add up? The official explanation was swift and clinical. Kendrick Johnson had died of positional asphyxia. The case, labeled an accident, closed within days. But something about that never sat right with his family. Kendrick's mother, Jackie Johnson, didn't believe her son climbed into a 6-foot mat over a shoe, especially not one he'd worn old clothes to retrieve. She knew her son. He wasn't reckless, she said. He wasn't careless. And he wasn't climbing into a mat head first. So the family ordered a second autopsy, this time conducted independently. What it found changed everything. The report revealed something the original didn't mention. Blunt force trauma to the right side of the neck. A blow. Forceful enough to cause death. 2 autopsies, 2 conclusions, 1 body, and a growing list of unanswered questions. When Kendrick's body was exhumed for the second examination, the family made a horrifying discovery. His internal organs were missing. The funeral home had stuffed his body cavity with crumpled newspaper. "We opened our child up, and he was filled with newspaper," his mother said. The funeral home claimed they'd received the body that way. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation said the organs were destroyed by natural decomposition. But medical experts disagreed. Kendrick's body had been stored in a cold chamber for hours after discovery. Not enough time, they argued, for total decomposition of every internal organ. The explanation didn't hold, but no one took responsibility. The chain of custody? Broken. The trail? Cold. Even the way Kendrick was found didn't make sense to his family. He was a broad-shouldered athlete, 6 feet tall. The opening in the mat? About 14 inches wide. Could someone his size really have slipped inside voluntarily? Wouldn't he have screamed, struggled, kicked the mat over? There were no scratch marks, no signs of struggle, and somehow no one heard anything. In a school filled with students, staff, and coaches, Kendrick disappeared and no one noticed. To Kendrick's parents, this was no accident. It was a cover-up, and they were just beginning to uncover the pieces. Someone, they believed, had hurt their son. Someone had hidden the truth, and someone in Valdosta didn't want them to find out. They didn't trust the system anymore. So they went looking for answers themselves, and what they found next would push the case into national headlines and spark a firestorm of controversy. They say the camera never lies, but in the Kendrick Johnson case, the cameras didn't speak at all, and what little they did show only raised more questions. Lowndes High had over 30 security cameras covering its hallways, entrances, and common areas, including the gym where Kendrick was found. When his family demanded to see the footage, they expected clarity. What they got was confusion. Kendrick is seen walking toward the old gym around 1:27 p.m. on January 10th. He's alone, casual, unaware that these are the last clear images of him alive. But then, nothing. There's no footage of him entering the gym itself, no footage of anyone following him, no footage of anything unusual, just a cut, a glitch, a gap. According to school officials, the gym cameras were motion activated, but large blocks of footage were missing, hours gone without explanation. One camera showed students walking, then jumping ahead in time. Over an hour vanished in a single frame. The Johnson family hired an independent forensic video analyst. His conclusion? The school's explanation: the video systems weren't synced. Timestamps were unreliable. Some cameras were older models. Others had different frame rates. Still, the gaps weren't consistent, and Kendrick's movement simply disappeared. Witnesses claimed other students were in the gym that day, playing, lifting weights, some near the mats. Were they ever questioned? If so, we never saw the transcripts. No one saw Kendrick fall in. No one heard anything. No one said a word. One frame in particular stood out. Kendrick, frozen mid-step, walking toward the gym, the timestamp clear, the footage smooth, then the next angle empty. It was as if he vanished in plain sight. The Johnson family believed that someone had altered or erased critical footage, whether to protect someone or something. But without that evidence, proving it would be nearly impossible. For most families, video footage brings comfort. It brings closure. For the Johnsons, it brought a wall, a digital silence they couldn't break through. They're hiding something. My son walked into that gym and never walked out. Someone knows what happened in there. The security footage, instead of answering questions, only deepened the mystery. And now eyes were turning to others, students, names, rumors. Because if the cameras couldn't tell the truth, maybe someone else could. When Kendrick Johnson's death made headlines, it wasn't long before the whispers started. Whispers in the hallways, whispers online, whispers naming names. One name came up again and again: Brian Bell, a fellow student, athlete, and someone who had once gotten into a fight with Kendrick. It happened over a year earlier, but people remembered. Brian was the son of Rick Bell, an FBI agent. His brother Brandon also attended the school. Their connection to Kendrick was vague. Some said friendly, some said tense. But rumors don't need proof. They just need oxygen. And in Valdosta, they spread like wildfire. The fight between Kendrick and Brian had been over a girl, according to classmates. It happened during a bus trip. Witnesses said it was minor, squashed quickly, but it was enough to stick. Investigators said the altercation was old news, no cause for suspicion. But to the Johnson family, it was motive. They began naming names publicly, accusing the Bell brothers of involvement, demanding new investigations, demanding arrests. The Bell family denied everything. No involvement, no knowledge, no contact with Kendrick that day. Then the lawsuit started. The Bell family sued the Johnsons for defamation, accusing them of destroying their reputation without proof. The Johnsons responded with a wrongful death suit, naming 38 individuals, including classmates, school officials, and law enforcement. 38 people, but no one was ever charged. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation maintained its stance. There was no foul play. The U.S. Attorney's Office opened a federal investigation in 2014, reviewing 18 months of evidence, interviews, and video. The conclusion? No sufficient evidence to file federal charges. No signs of a federal crime. The Johnson family was devastated. The public split. To some, it was a cover-up. To others, a tragic accident turned conspiracy. But the whispers never stopped. The names never disappeared. The deeper the Johnsons dug, the more resistance they faced. But they weren't done. They wanted the truth, and they were willing to keep exhuming it. By now, Kendrick had been exhumed twice. His body told one story, the system told another, the truth still out of reach. But the Johnson family believed they were close, closer than ever. 7 years, 2 autopsies, 0 arrests. The Johnson family refused to accept silence as an answer. And in March 2021, a new sheriff came to town, literally. Sheriff Ashley Pauk, a retired investigator with a reputation for blunt talk, reopened Kendrick Johnson's case. His message: we're going to look at everything, from scratch. The Johnson family delivered 17 boxes of evidence to Sheriff Pauk. Inside, photos, documents, expert reports, and copies of the surveillance videos. They claimed this was the truth no one had wanted to see. But even with thousands of pages, Sheriff Pauk said something chilling. He said the videos weren't altered, that witnesses had been re-interviewed, that rumors of a cover-up were just that, rumors. The conclusion? The case was closed again in January 2022. Sheriff Pauk called it a tragic accident, not a crime. Kendrick's family was furious. Jackie Johnson called the new investigation a joke. They weren't giving up. They still believed Kendrick had been murdered, that the truth had been buried deeper than their son. Then came a leak. A mysterious online post claimed access to FBI files. In it, allegations of a confession, a young man admitting he struck Kendrick during a fight in the gym. The confession was never confirmed. The FBI denied it led to charges, but the rumor went viral. Millions saw it, millions believed it. The court of public opinion had its own verdict, but the legal system didn't move. Even now, more than a decade later, the Kendrick Johnson case refuses to rest. Some call it a cold case, others call it closed. But for Kendrick's family, it's still burning. Every January they return to the gym, the mats are gone, the questions remain. Some believe the truth is buried in redacted files, lost footage, and sealed lips. Others believe it was all a terrible, tragic accident. The only certainty? Kendrick Johnson walked into that gym and never walked out. 11 years have passed since Kendrick Johnson was found dead inside that rolled-up gym mat. What began as a local tragedy became a national question mark. An autopsy, then another. A reopened case, then another closure. Answers remain elusive. Pain remains permanent. Kendrick was more than a case file. He was a son, a brother, a student with dreams of playing college football, a teenager with plans, laughter, and time that was stolen. Valdosta is split. To some, Kendrick's death was a horrible accident, a moment of teenage impulse with unthinkable consequences. To others, it's a symbol of systemic failure, of how quickly justice can be buried beneath power, privilege, and silence. The truth may be buried under years of dust, missteps, and missing footage, or it may never have been recorded at all. Through it all, Jackie and Kenneth Johnson have refused to stop. They've marched, sued, investigated, buried their son not once but 3 times, searching not just for peace, but for truth. They still believe Kendrick was murdered, and that someone somewhere is living free, knowing exactly what happened in that gym. The Kendrick Johnson case is more than a mystery. It's a mirror. It forces us to ask hard questions. What happens when the system closes ranks? When evidence disappears? When silence becomes strategy? And when a family's grief becomes a fight that never ends? Kendrick Johnson walked into that gym a teenager. He left it a symbol for justice seekers, for truth tellers, and for those who know that sometimes the dead don't rest until the truth is told. If you're intrigued by unsolved mysteries and chilling cases, check out my playlist, True Crime Murders and Disappearances, for more unsolved cases.